We're a month away from the start of training camp, and all three Chicago Bears second-round picks remain unsigned. It sounds like a big deal, but I promise there's nothing to worry about.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1, and you can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On the show today, I want to dive into the contract situation surrounding the Bears' 3 second-round picks. The rest of the Bears draft class is signed, so what gives? Why are these guys in the second round still not under contract? Well, there's some specific contract language stuff that's getting in the way here, not just for the Bears' second-round picks, but the vast majority of the second-round picks. Only 2 second-round picks have been signed at the time that I'm recording this contract, and there's some specific things holding things up that can slow this process down, but ultimately I don't think are going to be disruptive to these players, Luther Burden, Ozzie Trapillo, and Shamar Turner, getting onto the field for training camp for the Chicago Bears. So we'll explain what's going on, why it's not that big of a deal, and why training camp is going to be really important for those guys in particular, more so than almost anybody else on the roster. But in the modern NFL, we don't see a lot of big rookie contract dispute holdouts the way we did in the old days, because there's the collective bargaining agreement has a rookie wage scale. So that just means that when a player is drafted, the exact number on their contract is already predetermined by the slot in which they are drafted. I think it's some kind of percentage of the salary cap kind of thing that, the first pick gets the most, and then as you work your way down, every player is slotted into a salary. So when rookies are negotiating their contracts with teams, there's no debating, well, I should get paid this much or that much, because the number is always set. And that's why you see plenty of players sign their contracts pretty quickly, because there's not that much to get caught up on. But there is enough to get caught up on to still leave 30 out of the 32 second-round picks unsigned right now. Colston Loveland from the Bears, first-round pick, signed his rookie contract in May. Most of the rest of the Bears draft picks, I think they all signed right away there in May. It's just these 3 guys in the second round. So what gives then? Okay, the salaries are locked in, so what's there to argue about? What's taking so long? And I think you can see some of this in what's happening with the Cincinnati Bengals and Shamar Stewart in the first round, where they're fighting over some details in the contract, and now there's some more specifics about the second round. It's a slightly different battle. So every first round rookie contract in the NFL is now fully guaranteed for all 4 years of the deal. And then you can get the 5th-year option beyond that, but your 4-year rookie contracts are fully guaranteed. What Shamar Stewart and the Bengals are fighting on, for example, is there's language in the rookie contract about voiding some of those guarantees later on in the deal. Like if you have an injury, for example, that forces you to retire, you could put language in the contract that says, hey, if you suffer a career-ending injury, the last year of your deal is no longer guaranteed, and that won't count against the salary cap, and they won't have to pay that money then, and it won't go to the player. And you can see where you might want to fight for that if you're a player that has specific things that you want to feel like the team is valuing you and not worried about these kind of situations. But in the second round, it's slightly different because, while every first round contract has become fully guaranteed through all 4 years, the rest of the draft are not fully guaranteed for all 4 years. This year, wide receiver Jaden Higgins of the Houston Texans became the first second-round pick to get his rookie contract fully guaranteed. The Texans became the first team ever to say, second-round pick, all 4 years are guaranteed for you too, just like a first-round pick. And so the Browns followed suit and did that with Carson Schweisinger, the linebacker. So now the first 2 picks of the second round have been signed, and they are the first 2 fully guaranteed contracts for second round picks. Normally, for a second round pick, you get the first couple of years guaranteed, and then, some of the third and occasionally some of the fourth. But right, the number is staying the same. It's just a matter of what portion of that is guaranteed. You're going to get paid it no matter what, and what part of it's non-guaranteed, so that the team could release you and not have to pay you that salary. And that's really what the holdup is here right now, because it's kind of this unprecedented move of now second round picks are getting their contracts fully guaranteed. And not every team is on board with doing that, because the Bears have never given a second round pick a fully guaranteed contract. And none of these teams besides Houston and Cleveland have ever given second round picks 4 years fully guaranteed. So they're all getting some cold feet here about, okay, do we all give it then, or where is the line here? Because typically, you see teams will guarantee the first few years, but like in last year's draft, the 11th pick in the second round was Max Melton, the cornerback by the Cardinals. He was the last player in the draft to have any of that fourth year guaranteed. So the 11th pick was the last player to get any kind of fourth year guarantee. Otherwise, any pick after this, the 11th in the second round last year, they were just getting the first 3 years or less guaranteed, right? So the later in the draft that you go, the less far out in the contract that you're getting guaranteed money in that spot, right? So like the Bears didn't have a second round pick last year, so they didn't really have to deal with any of this, but you get the point, right? So now everyone's wondering, like, how long into the second round is it going to go before players stop getting it fully guaranteed? Because not every second round pick is going to get a fully guaranteed deal this year. Right now it's just the first two, and they're the first two ever. But eventually there's going to be a cutoff here where they say, okay, if you're picked after 45 or after 40 or whatever it is, then you're not going to get that guarantee. But agents and teams don't want to be the first player to not get guaranteed, and teams don't want to just go right out and start handing out these guarantees if they don't have to. They do want to protect some of their financial flexibility. And so that's where the Bears land with Luther Burden, Ozzie Trapillo, and Shamar Turner, right? They're all at various parts of this second round where you've got, Luther Burden at 39, you've got Ozzie Trapillo at 56, and Shamar Turner at 62. None of the other picks around them have been signed yet. And so their agents are waiting to see, well, how much does the guy before me get before I decide how much I'm going to get? Because I don't want a guy after me to get more guarantees than I got. So I don't want to jump the gun and sign for less than I deserve, because I'm still waiting to see how everyone else signs in this deal. And it's just purely a thing that's isolated to the second round, because only 3 first-round picks are unsigned, and every third-round pick is signed, every fifth-round pick is signed, I believe every 6th-round pick is signed, and every 7th-round pick is signed. There's just a couple of guys in the 4th round, a couple of guys in the 1st round, and then most of the 2nd round. There's just like specific structures of like, I don't want to sign too early until I see what other guys are getting. But now we kind of got this game of chicken of everyone looking around and seeing who's going to be the first one to blink. And there's one particular player that everyone's waiting for. That we've kind of identified the black sheep in the middle here, and it's New Orleans Saints quarterback Tyler Shough, the S-H-O-U-G-H, who was the 40th overall pick. The player taken one pick after Luther Burden is the one that's really holding this up. So we'll take a look at why the Saints and Tyler Shough are holding this up and what it means for the Bears draft picks, and why I don't think this is really going to be something that causes any problems for Chicago and their rookies, next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the greens, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It's a great way to make these summer sports a little bit more exciting. The NBA and NHL playoffs are done, but you can bet ahead to the upcoming football season. You can bet on Bears-Vikings in Week 1, Caleb Williams' passing yards, Ben Johnson's Coach of the Year odds, and so much more, all in a FanDuel app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. If you're new to FanDuel, now's a great time to get started. New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Download the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So all of these other second-round picks, including Luther Burden, Ozzie Trapillo, and Shamar Turner, are waiting on New Orleans Saints quarterback Tyler Shough, the 40th overall pick. And there was a great article over at CBS Sports that explains this really well from Joel Corey, who is a former agent himself, who really kind of laid out the details here. And he's the one who's reporting specifically that Tyler Shough is the holdup here, because you think, okay, it's weird. Shough is the 40th overall pick. There are 5 players drafted earlier than him who also haven't signed. So like, don't you think we should be waiting for like the next highest pick player? Like the first 2 second round picks are signed. So then aren't we waiting on the 3rd pick of the second round, and then the 4th will come after him, and you can kind of work your way down that way? Well, the exception here, and the reason why this is a little bit different, is because Tyler Shough is a quarterback. And the quarterback being the next highest unsigned quarterback, and I think the only QB in the second round, as I'm double checking here, he reportedly from Joel Corey, wants a fully guaranteed 4 years of his contract, because he presumably will be the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints after Derek Carr retired. They have Spencer Rattler, they have Jake Haener, but like they're expecting their rookie second round pick Tyler Shough to be their starter. And he says, if I'm going to be your starting quarterback right away, year 1, then you should guarantee all 4 years of my contract instead of just the first 3 or a partial portion of the 4th year. And so far, the Saints have been a little bit slow and resistant to giving him that, because there are 5 players drafted before him that haven't gotten theirs guaranteed yet. And so the Saints don't necessarily want to set this precedent to say, okay, everyone up to the 40th pick gets theirs fully guaranteed. But then the other players don't want to sign their deals until they see what the Saints give their quarterback, because they know their quarterback is the one who's playing hardball and wants a little bit more of this. And so it's a tricky little situation here where it's like you're waiting on the Saints quarterback and the Saints to make their situation, but also like, how long do you wait for the Saints to make their pick? Like it's kind of a tricky spot, especially when Luther Burden is literally 1 spot before Tyler Shough, right? It's one thing like Ozzie Trapillo and Shamar Turner are at the end of like later in the second round, and so I think Trapillo is pick 56. He's 15 picks after Tyler Shough. How much is it really holding up there? But it's sort of this domino effect, right? Where like the agents for Trapillo and Shamar Turner want to see if the Bears will give Luther Burden a fully guaranteed contract. And if they give Luther Burden a fully guaranteed contract, well, hey, you also drafted our player in the second round, so you should give us that fully guaranteed second round pick. And everything's kind of just waiting to see how this is going to go and how far someone like Tyler Shough is willing to take this, because he's got a lot more leverage than maybe most often second round picks do. When we're talking about their plan A starting quarterback, the quarterback position is most important, obviously. And the Saints have other options, but you drafted Tyler Shough in the second round with this intention. He knows he can leverage this a little bit. And are the Saints going to want their rookie quarterback to miss any time in training camp over some guaranteed dollars in the 4th year? Because remember, it's not about getting more money. It's just whether that money is guaranteed or not guaranteed in the last year of the contract. And part of this feels silly because it's like we're nitpicking over the 4th year of a rookie contract when you'll either know the player's good or the player's not good. And it's like, if you're drafting this guy to be your in the second round to be your starting quarterback, if you're ready to cut him in year 4, that means he didn't work out, and you're trying to save money on cutting him in year 4 when you're already kind of screwed because you drafted this quarterback to be your starter. And if you're cutting him after 4 years, then you have swung and missed on a quarterback with a high draft pick, and you're going to be in a really bad position anyway. So how much relief do you really get by saving $1 million in guaranteed money versus not, because you're already screwed and picking up the pieces anyway from missing on a big quarterback pick, right? Like it feels a little bit nitpicky and not all that necessary, but at the same time, teams have to draw a line somewhere, right? Okay, so we'll guarantee the 40th overall pick in the second round, but then you're not guaranteeing your third round picks. But the deeper into the draft you start guaranteeing, well, then the more players are going to want it guaranteed. It's sort of a give a mouse a cookie kind of thing, where it's like, this is the first year that any second round picks have gotten guaranteed money. And so then next year, more second round picks are going to get guaranteed money until eventually, a couple of years from now, perhaps every second round pick will have fully guaranteed contracts, right? Because every time the guarantees keep improving, then the next player is going to want the same thing, and more players are going to want more, and teams start to cave into that. And it's sort of this ripple effect that I think the Saints and other teams are hesitant to, push forward and to continue. That I think they're all mad at the Texans for starting it by giving Jaden Higgins the fully guaranteed contract. And now the Texans started this. Now everyone else is like, oh, crap. Now do we got to give our guy? Well, we got to draw the line somewhere. Like somebody in the second round this year is going to be the earliest second round pick in this draft class to not have a fully guaranteed deal, right? Somebody's going to get the short end of the stick because they're not all going to be fully guaranteed. But what pick that's going to be, no agent wants to be the agent who couldn't get their player the fully guaranteed deal. And so that's why everyone's waiting, because they want to see if Shough and the Saints don't budge, or if they do budge and say, all right, fine, we don't need it guaranteed. Well, then it sort of ripples back, and then it's on somebody else. Is it Nick Manwari from the Seahawks? He's the third pick of the second round. I mean, Quinshon Judkins of the Browns is the fourth pick. I mean, eventually you get to Luther Burden at 39, and could he be one of the inflection points here? It's an interesting game of staring each other down that all these second-round pick teams are involved in. But I do think Tyler Shough is the only one with real leverage here, and that's why I don't see this as that big of a deal for the Bears. Because if it gets to be the start of training camp, you're not going to see these other players hold out for some guarantees in the fourth year of their deal, right? The return on investment of that fourth year being guaranteed versus not guaranteed is not valuable enough for these players to miss training camp time. Right? Being on the field with their team for training camp is a lot more valuable to their career success than whether all or some of the salary in the fourth year of their contract is guaranteed. Because on the same flip side we talked about earlier, like if Luther Burden is a really good wide receiver, then when he goes in the fourth year of his contract, he's going to get a huge extension, and it's not going to matter whether that money was guaranteed or not. And if he's not a very good receiver and he's getting cut into year four, then does that guaranteed money make that big of a difference? His career's already going to be going down the drain a little bit. And I don't know. It just says it's very, again, it's more about the ripple effect and the precedent setting than it is like the individual impact on any of the four players. And I don't think, especially given the time Luther Burden missed due to injuries this offseason, Luther Burden's not going to miss Bears training camp. He's going to, even if Tyler Shough hasn't signed his deal, other players are going to start signing their deals once we get a little bit closer to training camp. Because you might remember last year, do you remember when Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze signed their rookie contracts? I'd be really impressed if you knew the exact date, but maybe just the timing, because we had some of the same conversation last year. We're in June, and Caleb's unsigned, and Rome's unsigned. They're the only two Bears draft picks that weren't signed. And on July 16th, 2024, the day before rookies reported the Bears training camp, Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze both signed their contracts. They didn't miss any time, and there was some small amount of hand-wringing among Bears fans and media and analysts and stuff, but realistically, nothing happened. Wasn't a big deal, and the same is going to be true for Luther Burden, Ozzie Trapillo, and Shamar Turner. It might be the day they report to training camp, but they will sign and will be on the field for the first training camp practices, assuming everyone's healthy, because these guys in particular are among, I think this group is the group of Chicago Bears players that need training camp more than pretty much everyone else on the roster. But we'll look at the guys who I think training camp is going to be most important for this summer next on Locked On Bears. Luther Burden in particular is going to have to do some catching up here because of the soft tissue injuries that kept him out of, well, he did part of rookie minicamp before suffering the injuries, and then not able to go for voluntary OTAs, not able to practice for mandatory minicamp, and then even the last extra week of rookie OTAs at the end of the summer practice window. Like, we didn't get to see much Luther Burden out on the field at all. And so he's got some catching up to do and can't afford to start training camp holding out over very minor year 4 rookie contract details in there. Again, it's not going to happen, but he and Colston Loveland, who also signed his rookie contract right away, but missed all of the practices because of injuries, like those two guys, I think, need training camp more than anyone else on the roster, perhaps solely because they're the latest start in here. I mean, it's not exactly the same as them kind of like signing as a free agent right now, because they've had the playbooks and they've been around the coaches and been in meetings and around their teammates and stuff. But like from a functional practice standpoint, they really got to get going and get rolling. And I think it says something about this Bears roster and the current composition, that these rookies are the ones who really need training camp more than anybody else. And of course, rookies always need training camp, but like you look around this Bears roster, there aren't really a lot of veteran players who are in a key position battle that desperately need training camp in order to, thrive and develop and win their battle and save their job, with the exception of players that are battling rookies, right? But like, it's only the rookies and their veteran opponents, like say Ozzy Trapillo needs training camp, right? Like he's in a left tackle battle. He is still adjusting to the NFL and needs as many practice reps as he can to try and catch up and try and win that left tackle battle. One of the few veterans anywhere on this roster in a real position battle then is Braxton Jones, battling Ozzy Trapillo, also coming from behind because he's missed all of practice so far with an injury. And we don't know whether Braxton Jones will be ready for training camp or not. That was the hope, that was the goal. But typically when they say that's the hope or the goal, that's not the same as saying, yes, we're very confident he's going to be ready. So I suspect Braxton Jones may start on the physically unable to perform list, or at the very least start by not practicing right away, for the first few training camp practices, if not a little while in training camp. We'll see exactly how that goes. But like him and Colson Loveland coming off injuries, with the Burden coming off injuries, like Braxton Jones is kind of the top veteran player that I think needs training camp a lot, just as much, if not more, than some of the rookies. And he and Trapillo really both, it's going to be showtime, game time. Let's go now or never, go win your job. I guess not now or never for Trapillo, but now or never for Braxton Jones. And then Trapillo, like, this is your time to either shine or you're going to have to wait your turn a little bit longer there. I think one of the other veterans that's in a similar spot, it's Roschon Johnson in the backfield. He really needs training camp because, again, competing against a rookie, there's not really a spot on this roster outside of maybe cornerback. We can talk about that in a second, like where it's like veteran versus veteran for a key role. It's kind of rookie versus veteran anywhere on this team that you can really see a position battle here. I think Kyle Monangai is someone who should be even better at training camp than he is or was in OTAs and minicamp because the pads go on. And this is a running back whose biggest strength is physicality and contact balance, that when he hasn't been allowed to be hit this whole time, but when he is allowed to be hit, he is hard to tackle because he can absorb that contact and bounce off of it and stay upright and not fall over and be down, from contact. Like that contact, the balance through contact is his strength. And he hasn't really been able to show that at minicamp and OTAs because of the literal lack of contact. So I think him being able to get the pads on and be contacted and show his strength in spite of that contact will go a long way for him. But we know Roschon Johnson also a lot more of a physical runner than a finesse runner. And so when he can get the pads on and lower the shoulders a little bit, right, he too is going to be in a better position. So it'll be interesting to see. I think they're different styles of physical runners, but it'll be interesting to see if those guys can shine even a little bit more at training camp than what they were able to do at OTAs and mandatory minicamp, as they battle for not their jobs in the sense of no one's getting cut, but their roles within the offense and how many opportunities each guy's going to get to carry the ball and play as a backup to DeAndre Swift. I guess the other spot where it's veterans competing head-to-head is a defensive end, with the backups being Austin Booker and Dominique Robinson, trying to figure out who's going to be the number 3 defensive end there. I still contend that, and I'll keep saying it every podcast episode if I have to, they need to sign an edge rusher. They need a number 3 edge rusher who's currently not on the roster. And I really think they're going to be struggling to generate enough of a pass rush from the edge and have everybody fresh and at their best if they don't get more at the edge there. But Booker versus Dominic Robinson, those guys both need training camp. Linemen all need training camp to have the pads on to really show you what they can do, but especially those guys in a direct positional battle competition type of thing. Although I wonder if that competition becomes less meaningful if a veteran gets brought in who's clearly going to be ahead of them on the depth chart. And then those guys are fighting for the roster spot. And I suppose that's still very meaningful for them individually, but less impactful on the success or failure of the Chicago Bears this season if they're not fighting for that number 3 role, but just fighting for the number 4 or 5 spot and their spot on the 53-man roster. Another rookie, I guess, Ruben Hippolyte at linebacker with him and Noah Sewell and Amanam Amiga. Like, that's another rookie who needs training camp to emerge and cement himself as a potential starter next to Edwards and Edmonds in that base defense. Again, it says something about this Bears roster that these are all rookies, right? That you're not looking around the team saying, we signed whatever, to pick a position. You signed, I'm trying to think of a good example, like last year at center, Coleman Shelton and Ryan Bates, and it's two veterans going head to head. And sometimes when you got multiple free agents or additions at the same position battling it, kind of feels like the old saying, when you got two quarterbacks, you don't have one because neither one's very good. And it felt like the Bears have tried that approach at a lot of positions. Like last year with Shelton and Bates, it's like you brought in two centers, and it feels like neither one is good enough. So you hope that the competition makes one good enough. You're not seeing that approach anywhere on the Bears roster this season. And it feels like it's the first year in a while that they haven't been like directly counting on a battle head to head between veterans at key positions. I'm thinking back, this has always been the case at defensive end until they traded for Montez Sweat, between, DeMarcus Walker and Trevis Gibson and Dominique Robinson. We're always having battles at the defensive end position. The last few seasons, we've seen it a lot on the offensive line with different guards and tackles and centers, even at wide receiver with Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool, and then they drafted Tyler Scott and Velus Jones. Right? We've seen a lot of these like battles where you're hoping that one of these guys you got turns out to be good. And for Chicago now, because it's like rookies competing with veterans, it feels like, well, you had veterans on the roster that'll be fine. If Braxton Jones wins left tackle position, you're fine. You already know it's good. The rookie is just a potential upgrade from what you already know would get the job done. I think Roschon Johnson can absolutely get the job done as a number 2 running back. But Kyle Monangai could be an upgrade, and an upgrade. Like it's only a boost. It's not like, can we figure out if either of these guys are good? It's, we have one good guy, and let's see if the second guy can actually be even better. And that's so much more secure of a position for the roster to be in, as opposed to battling together and hoping one of them emerges as a better player than they've been before, or gives you something more than you thought you'd get, or just the competition brings out the best in both of them. Like, well, when neither one's best is all that good, it doesn't do your roster all that good, almost regardless of who wins it. I think the only spot on the team that might kind of fit that category, but even then it's not quite the same, is the kick returner job. They signed Devin Duvernay from the Jaguars. He's been a Pro Bowler with the Ravens before, but hasn't been as good the last couple of seasons. He'll be battling with the likes of, Josh Blackwell and Tyler Scott and maybe Travis Homer. And you hope that kick return battle can either bring the most out of Devin Duvernay or have one of these other guys emerge. But if kick returner is like the spot on your roster you're most concerned about having a competition, I think you're in a pretty good spot. And again, noting our concerns about the number 3 edge rusher, and I still think number 3 safety could use an upgrade. Off backup offensive line could use an upgrade. Running back, obviously, you can always kind of upgrade there. But I just think it represents a maturation of the roster development and the team building process. The Bears are in this point where they're not just throwing a bunch of veterans at a position and hoping one of them's good. It's adding rookies at positions that you'd like to upgrade, knowing that you have players you do like and can count on at those positions. And that's what's going to make training camp all that more exciting, because you don't have to worry about these battles all over the place, but you can kind of just say, here's our guys, let's lock them in and build that cohesion and be one consistent unit for as long as you can in the lead up to the season, with left tackle is kind of the only thing that's really truly up in the air, and maybe the linebacker spot. But I think it's a better spot for the Bears roster now than they've been in some years past. Certainly we'll keep tabs on all of these training camp battles all throughout training camp, with updates daily on our Locked On Bears podcast, 5 days a week again, once the training camp rolls back around. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you're looking for a second listen today, go check out any of our other Locked On podcasts from the NBA, NHL, MLB, or college sports. We've got every team, all the major sports teams covered, plus a bunch of colleges across the country with Locked On podcasts daily. So go make one of those your second listen today. Coming back later this week and make Locked On Bears your first listen once again for another opportunity to bear down.